Jeanette Wider, and welcome to our Patient Engagement Virtual Day Fireside Chat titled Physician Strategies Need to Embrace New Approaches to Drive Patient Engagement and Near-Term Growth. Today, I'm here with Michael and Charlotte. So why don't we begin by you two introducing yourself. Michael, would you like to go first?
Great. Hey everyone, Mike Streleski. I'm part of SG2 Consulting, the senior principal on our team. SG2 Consulting is a Vizient company, and we work with our clients and members on strategy projects and developing their strategic plans. And I focus primarily in the physician strategy and physician enterprise space.
And thanks, Mike. So Charlotte Brown-Zaleva, associate principal with SG2, a Vizient company, as part of the intelligence team, providing thought leadership and forward-thinking strategy for our members and clients.
Okay, so I'll just hop right into the questions, if that's okay with both of you. So to help us reset, what's the current state of ambulatory physician enterprises across the country?
It's the right place for us to start, right? We're coming out of COVID, so some things are starting to maybe move to what that sort of new normal looks like, but we've learned a ton, and a lot of changes happened over the last couple of years. So I think maybe where I'll start is, what's the model that physician practices are starting to move towards, right? And I think what we're seeing is clearly consistent consolidation, but the purpose of that consolidation, which in the past was leverage, it was to drive rate leverage with payers, it was to really create more of that traditional sort of buying power. It's really now around scale, and it's creating a model that can scale across a region, potentially nationally. It's to lower the operating costs of the practice. It's to provide expensive capabilities, technology that can best be leveraged across multiple sites. So it's to manage the practice more efficiently, to lower those operating costs, and to manage top line growth, which is always important. But that's what we're seeing physician practices start to do, is to embrace a model that can scale and be lean and optimize top line growth.
Okay, so access and capacity challenges are real constraints for growth. How can a health system get ahead to create operational efficiency and then bring the right patients into their doors?
It's a great question, Jeanette. And at SG2 and Vizient, we're really turning the access and capacity challenges the industry is facing completely on its head. Through a new innovative solution, we're providing ambulatory physician practice enterprises, whether you're employed, affiliated, or independent. We're giving them a strategic edge to really solve those hurdles and generate that near-term volume for that top line lift that Mike alluded to. And you can get through those access and capacity challenges and focus on that near and midterm growth by retooling the optimization to satisfy the customer and the business. So we're using a unique combination of expert advisory services, our cutting edge analytics to pinpoint near-term market growth opportunities, and pairing that with a practice operations enhancement to really streamline access and capacity throughput. And then also using and applying a modern consumer marketing and physician referral optimization tool set. And so that really allows our ambulatory physician practice enterprises to be better positioned to secure efficiency in the intake process, streamline the referral workflow, and then also optimize physician productivity and performance. And at this point, it's really truly imperative for physician enterprises to establish that enhanced customer experience up front for the ambulatory physician practice strategy. By and large, our unique solution also helps ambulatory physician enterprises tackle the essential operational hurdles so that you can realize optimal new customers and solidify referring physician relationships into your ambulatory footprint for rapid growth.
Interesting. So how can ambulatory teams rethink their care model and consider their consumer base to be better positioned with access and capacity to achieve growth right now?
Well, so this is how you get it done, right? So based on kind of what Charlotte outlined, the care model is ultimately what needs to change around how we deliver the care, and fundamentally represents change for most physician practices. So kind of going back to where I started, some of the large groups, these national groups, private equity backed groups, they've formalized and standardized their model, and they're continuing to refine it, right? Most health system groups are really born out of private practices that they've acquired that have different systems, different processes, and nothing is really standardized at a level that it should be. And that's ultimately what we're seeing represent in terms of data that says when we go into our clients, they've got capacity, or their physicians or their providers are not as productive as they should be. So the data says you should be doing more. You shouldn't be losing as much as you are. But when you talk to the providers, they say, but these are all the reasons why we can't either see more patients, or we can't be more productive, or these are the challenges that we're faced with, right? So something is broken here. So at the end of the day, what we think the care model focus needs to do is start to flush out what levers can you pull and what can you change? How do you best position the practice to achieve some kind of access strategy that gets closer to same day, that optimizes the intake of new patients? Because that needs to be a focus, right? New patients is how you grow your practice. And from a health system standpoint, it's how you start to capture market share. That is absolutely fundamental. So there's a front end piece around access that's, and you need to identify where those patients are. And then the care model is who manages the flow of those patients, right? In some cases, we're not using the physician as appropriately as we should be. And that's where you start to need to look at APPs and a team-based care model and starting to triage where those patients go. And what the data tells us, and when we look at practices, right, you can drive more patient visits, you can drive improvement in top line growth, and in some cases, you need to add some cost, right? There are certain resources that need to be added to optimize how that practice works, which does represent an investment. But if you're in a market that's growing, and if you've got some competitive dynamics that can support that investment, I think you can see the ROI on that. So that's ultimately sort of the way in which we start to attack a kind of a care model approach.
Okay. How then can an ambulatory physician strategy optimize an existing site to generate near-term business growth?
Yeah, Jeanette, I'm so glad you asked. And Mike really kind of led us right there with thinking about how we create that intentional change in our health industry and think about access to care and care models differently. So let's take orthopedics and musculoskeletal services, for example, where physician enterprise strategy is really accelerating toward care utilization in ambulatory surgery centers, or ASCs, and perhaps joint ventures with physician groups to capitalize on that near-term growth potential. Our annual SG2 Impact of Change forecast projects a 10% uptick in outpatient procedures over the next 10 years, or through 2032, in orthopedics. And so the question becomes, how are we going to solve the access and capacity equation, as Mike outlined, to really meet our customers' expectations and then fill those sites with the right customers for the services offered, and really in short order. So, using our orthopedics example, perhaps we have a 3-hospital health system serving 25 counties that's interested in an ASC growth strategy for their employed orthopedic physician groups to practice. And the system's currently losing market share to a nearby independent physician group. So their current ambulatory physician practice strategy really aims to position their orthopedics ASC as that center that's easy to access. It's a lower cost of care option. It provides an overall positive experience. And they're looking to offer hip and knee replacement, as well as upper extremity surgery and minimally invasive spine offerings. So, they've paired the clinical offerings with those on-site ancillary services, such as labs and standard and advanced imaging, as well as rehab services. They're factoring in maybe extended hours visits in the early mornings and evenings during the week, and expanding their potential customer reach. how are they going to get the right customers to their ASC and also consider engaging the right referring physicians to drive that business? So, this is where our cutting edge analytics platform really provides that system with a clear understanding of the projected demand for orthopedic subspecialties that they're considering at the ASC. And it in this case, highlights a segment of consumers perhaps that are over 45, as well as an overall population in the ASC footprint that's at risk for fracture care. So, pull in our expert advisory services, couple that with the advanced analytics insights that we just learned about, and we can help that system ensure, consider incorporating non-operative sports medicine physicians into their clinic model, as well as on-site bone health an offering as part of the optimization strategy for their orthopedics focused ASC. So, they may also consider additional diagnostic investment in perhaps a DEXA scan capability for even stronger revenue returns. So, really leaning into how to optimize that model in that orthopedics focused ASC site that they're building and shifting to. And so we also, enable the ambulatory physician enterprise to assess their entry points at the ASC, their clinic and surgical workflow based on the type of care needed. And then we can really apply the appropriate support care team and resource distribution and make sure those are secured along with the system and the partner. Again, all of this helps establish really an exceptional care experience up front before we even start talking to our patients and our referring physicians. So, now that we kind of have the orthopedics ASC model in place, it kind of leads us to, all right, how are we going to develop those targeted consumer acquisition and physician alignment strategies to really seal the right growth to the ASC? And so for rapid new consumer acquisition, we're using a modern, high-touch, digitally enabled tool set and deploying that in order to get the right patients to the ASC. And the innovative tool set really uses sophisticated predictive modeling and a data set that builds that target consumer segment and the segments within the system's ASC footprint to really appropriately identify candidates by understanding their lifestyle and behavioral characteristics. So it's a unique ability to pinpoint consumer candidates or potential candidates in that ASC footprint who can benefit from learning about the subspecialty services offered. And that could be, the bone health offering that the system's thinking about, hip and knee replacement or revision surgery, spine services, or even, basic physical therapy needs. So consumers were engaged in this example through customized outreach paired with human interaction via a care scheduling service. And this really allowed for the appropriate level of education for that individual consumer based on where they were in their decision-making process for the orthopedics care that they needed. It also allowed individuals to really self-educate and self-navigate on their own terms. And as a result, that system and provider partners saw an initial ROI of 15-fold in near-term growth for the ASC. So let's jump to how to secure physician alignment from the referring physicians for our new ASC offering, Jeanette, and really actively engaging physician liaisons and a physician liaison team and deploying them to foster relationships with target referring physicians. So, our physician liaison team really offers repeat awareness and knowledge visits around the full musculoskeletal and orthopedics offerings of the ASC. And that's really inclusive of all of those wraparound services too. So your ancillaries and your rehab services, and then also the surgical capabilities. So it's really that full service knowledge base that the liaison team really brings to our referring physician base to really help our physicians and enable them to talk with the right types of customers based on those subspecialties that are offered at the ASC. And then the liaison team certainly helps to remove access barriers for the referring providers too, as well as resolve concerns along the way. And it really just helps to streamline the referral process and workflow too as well. So, ultimately the recipe for success for this ambulatory physician practice strategy example that we gave in the ASC space that was orthopedics and musculoskeletal focus really included that enhanced operational efficiency and clinical productivity to solidify the foundation for that exceptional care offering right up front, and then leveraging our cutting edge analytics and data insights with modern consumer marketing and physician engagement strategy to drive rapid growth.
So Charlotte uses this example, I think, and it's important because we talk with our clients a lot about orthopedics for obvious reasons, right? That service line has been disrupted. There's a lot of competition. There's large groups in most markets, private groups that have developed their own model, typically backed by, often backed by some private equity money to build an ASC, and potentially these even short stay hospital type models that are really disruptive for the hospital, right? Have sucked a ton of contribution margin away from the hospital. So in a lot of cases, the health system is trying to compete with that group. And it's not enough to just recruit the subspecialists to sort of match physician talent. And it's not enough to just have an ASC, right? Those are table stakes in that particular service line. And this is true for most any other service line. If we were talking about cardiology or cancer or surgery or medicine or women's health, right? It's not enough to just match the physician talent and the services. It's about how you build that program, how you structure the care model of the practices themselves, how you embrace a consumer orientation, right, to enhance your access on the front end, and how you use data and how you integrate that with other types of resources, as Charlotte mentioned, a physician liaison kind of program, to mine that data, work your referral streams, and start to drive volume to those practices. And I think in our experience, it's far more complicated, right, than just picking a location and expecting that the patients are going to show up. Now, I think most of our health systems intuitively know this, right? But there's frustration when they've made these big investments in physicians and facilities, and they're seeing losses at the medical group level, or they're seeing suboptimal use of the ASC or other sites of service that they've built. And they're looking at the market saying, why aren't we getting more of this, the market that we should? We've got a great brand. We want to leverage that. We want to build off of that. We want to serve the community. We want to grow. So at the end of the day, I think what Charlotte sort of outlined is there's pieces of data that we think can help create those connections and start to highlight where those patients are, which patients you should focus on. And then ultimately it's how you build the program to start to do outreach directly to those areas of the market that can produce that downstream benefit.
That's right, Mike. And really, really utilizing the growth levers that you have at your fingertips too, both in the direct marketing space by meeting customers on their own terms. And then also, as you said, really leveraging your physician liaison team to really drive that growth to your care site.
Okay, so now let's turn to the major ambulatory disruptors in our health industry, because they're challenging how we think about physician strategy and care delivery. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I started, right? That these disruptors are changing consumer expectations, and frankly, they've been really good at creating some scale. So what we know they're able to manage their costs more effectively because of that scale, and they're fundamentally winning in terms of patient volume, right? They're able to engage patients, they're able to optimize their schedules, use of the providers, so they're also winning at the top line game. And this isn't, I think, informative for our health system clients to look at and say, okay, is this a space? At the end of the day, is this a space we have to play in? And therefore we need to invest and look to change our current model? Or is this a space that we're not going to be successful in, and we have to cede to these competitors, and we have to figure out how we're going to partner with them? And that's really controversial for a lot of health systems that feel like they own the market or have owned the market historically. When they think of that, though, that's a hospital mindset. They might be the market share leader from an inpatient perspective. But when we're talking ambulatory, it's far more competitive, and it may not be as, local as they think it is. I mean, care is delivered virtually across the country. So there's a lot of care that's being disrupted both locally and nationally through different channels. I think probably at the end of the day, the consumer orientation, though, favors, once you get past some of the initial barriers around, is the physician covered by my insurance plan, which is an obvious barrier, right? It ultimately comes down to access, and can you make it easy for patients and consumers to find you, to access your services, to schedule with you, to communicate. And if you can win that space, certainly at the lower acuity level, you're going to see the patients. And then probably the third is you need to reflect on your cost structure, because if you're providing a service that is far more costly, and you're passing that on to your consumer, you may over time not be as successful because you're expensive. In some cases, because of your reputation, your clinical excellence, you can still succeed by being a higher cost. I'm not saying there isn't a premium play here, but the disruptors are typically not going after a premium price, right? So they're trying to offer a lower cost solution. They're trying to drive services to lower cost sites of care. And I think for our clients and our members, that's something that they just need to be really aware of, is where can they be effective at playing in that lower cost setting.
Okay, so how can health systems take that next action step to ramp up their ambulatory physician strategy and position themselves for growth?
Yeah, Jeanette, I think Mike really lended a lens to that our health systems and ambulatory physician landscape really is challenged right now to reframe and humanize the experience for our customers, and then reframe their strategy to really compete with the heavy disruption that's out there. And we're helping clients get ahead of those headwinds altogether. Health systems and providers must solve for those access and capacity hurdles and really take a progressive approach to advance their ambulatory physician strategy. And they'll really need to think about, as Mike noted, deploying care models that are positioned to really activate their customers in their target markets and make it more efficient and on their terms ways to be able to get care. And we have a sophisticated solution that really takes things to a new era and now helps our health system clients beat the access and capacity barriers while ensuring a superb care experience. They can gain new consumers through a re-envisioned ambulatory physician footprint and also optimize business from target referring physicians. And it's all aimed to drive growth near term. Jeanette, we'd be glad to talk further to learn more about individual ambulatory physician strategy needs for near-term rapid growth. And clients, anybody is welcome to reach out to me directly.
So I want to thank both of you for taking the time to speak with me today. This was a very interesting conversation.